For the record, we may or may not make some mouth noises that may or may not cause your panties to get into a bunch. Welcome to Polyaskery Podcast. This is Shane and Jeanne. We're going to be your hosts. Don't worry, we're gentle, we're kind, and we're going to have a bunch of fun conversations and topics for you. You should join us. This week, we will be recording our histories, introducing each other, and the very broad strokes of our love lives. Enjoy the show.
All right, so good morning, Jeanne. How are you doing?
Oh, been better.
I'm going to have to edit out all of your laughter.
No, you're not.
Because you're going to giggle all the goddamn time.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'll probably say way too much.
Yeah, whatever. All right, so.
And who just giggled?
Yeah, I know.
I'm just saying.
Jeanne, what is polyamory to you?
The short definition would probably be consensual non-monogamy. People in relationships with each other, with everybody knowing what's going on between everybody involved, and negotiating that and being okay with it.
Okay. Polyamory for me is much the same. I want to have a open relationship with all of my partners and have everybody know about each other and be aware. And, you know, in many aspects, I love the idea of having a poly village where things are just enjoyed. You know, life is shared. Life is explored.
A community,
yeah. And I love that idea that you can be friends and still enjoy putting your face in between somebody's leg every now and then. Or
you just borrowed that.
Yeah, that's a definition that a friend of mine gave. Shout out to Corey. But that's always been my thought process as far as polyamory is concerned. It's just the ability to love and everybody be aware, and, you know, not like free love of the 70s or anything like that, but just the understanding that love is the most powerful emotion in the world. And
Can I use an example of something that happened to me fairly recently?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it was Thanksgiving, and my ex-girlfriend's girlfriend was out of town with one of her kids. And I spent Thanksgiving with my ex-girlfriend, and we cooked together. We snuggled on the couch. We watched some bad TV, had a great meal, and she's part of my poly community, and I'm not sleeping with either her or her girlfriend.
Yeah. I mean,
that's poly love. That is, hey, I got a free turkey at work and I don't have a stove big enough to cook it. and I know that you're a chef, and here's some free food, and between the two of us, we're going to spend $12 and have a fantastic meal with tons of leftovers.
Yeah.
That's poly community. That is love. That is sharing. That is, I helped her move.
Yeah.
With her girlfriend. It was the three of us.
Now, Jeanne, how out are you about poly?
Well, I've gotten a little more out recently. I'm out with select people who I'm comfortable with. Somebody, like, I just came out to people at work, kind of briefly. They're both my flunkies, so they know that I can fire them if they report me or get me in trouble. They won't. They're both good guys. But yeah, I told them about this podcast that we're going to be recording and gave them the website for Polyaskery, and we're going to find out what happens from there. But we've had some really, really good conversations that have kind of skirted around the topic. So this may actually answer an upcoming question, so you might want to cut this one out. But usually when I'm feeling comfortable with somebody and feeling like friendship is happening, I will drop in something like, and when I was dating this couple, or the last couple I dated, we did, not as to make a point, but just to make sure that it kind of becomes part of my normalized conversation with them.
Right. So just kind of like, you know, just kind of exposing them to it in a piecemeal way, but where, they
can either walk away from the conversation or they can say, oh, that's interesting, ask me more. You know, I don't want to shove it down their throats, but I don't want them to assume that I'm straight and that I'm monogamous.
That makes sense. It's kind of normalizing by small doses.
Yes.
I'm out to the people who I consider my family and my friends, because most of my friends are poly. I'm out to a select few people from back at home and stuff like that. And they know because I felt that it was, it was something that they were my friends and I felt like I could trust them to be okay.
Isn't that a lot of it, though? Trust?
Yeah, a lot of it is trust.
And maybe not trust that they're going to agree with you, but trust that they're not going to shun you for it or overly judge you for it.
Yeah, and I've had some backlash from a couple of people that just didn't want to understand, and that was one of those things that, like, how do you judge me? Like, why do you judge me? Well, you're cheating, and
absolutely. Well, that is the opposite of cheating. It's the opposite of cheating.
It was like, no, everybody knows about each other. Well,
yes.
Why can't you just stay faithful to one person? I was like, because my love doesn't work that way.
Right.
And like, I can love more than one person. I don't limit love. That's my concept of it. As like, I feel like polyamory allows you to expand love to be the most epic that it can be.
Beneficial.
Right. Love is the most powerful emotion in the world. Like, it has literally caused kingdoms to fall and, religions to form and, this is just an epic emotion, and people feel like it can be boxed in by monogamy.
By binaries.
And, right. Like ones and twos. And I don't feel like that's how that works. And I just don't think that people realize that that's what it is. Like, this is one of those hard conversations to have.
I'm watching you struggling.
I know.
It is a hard conversation to have. Like, how do you explain it to somebody who it was new for me to think about it. I'd grown up fairly religious, not as religious as you, but my parents met at a Christian college. I grew up in Alaska in the 70s in a very, very, very small town with 13 bars and 13 churches. So getting outside of that, I was convinced when I was little that I probably wasn't going to be a Christian, but I still had a sense of the virginity that Christianity had given me. And that was kind of fucked up. That didn't last long. I actually lost a bet by 6 days, 14 hours. That I couldn't go to college and stay a virgin for a year.
Oh, wow.
It was a $1 bet.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah. And it was with the person that I actually ended up later marrying.
Oh, okay.
And we'd been doing oral for quite some time. It was like, when we put down the bet, I was like, okay, Mike, define virginity here. Like, what counts as sex? He's like, PIV. All right. Oh, that would be penis and vagina for those of you who don't know.
What was your downfall?
I just kind of said, fuck it. Like, this rule is ridiculous. I'm not going to, I want to have sex right now. And it's worth it for me to lose that bet to Mike for $1 and let him gloat.
I will take the shame.
I will take the shame. I will say, I will hand him over the dollar bill gladly and say you're right. And I actually wrote, I lost my virginity on his $1 bill before I handed it to him.
I almost just spit my drink all over my microphone.
I know, Jesus. I saw that.
Wow.
I told you I have a
I would have framed that dollar bill. I was like, yes.
No, he actually,
goes on the wall.
I ran into him 15 years later and he still had it in his wallet.
Oh, good Lord. Can you imagine what that's... anyways. Oh, my gosh.
I told you I have a long and colorful history.
Yeah. So, we were talking about love. And I really enjoy, like, having a conversation last night with a metamor and kind of helping him with polyamory and things like that. It was, we were talking about love, and like, a mother doesn't love one child over another. A father doesn't love one, child over another. Brothers may have anger at each other over something, but most families who are fairly well adjusted, like, one brother's not going to be able to sit here and tell you that I love, this sister more than this sister, or this brother more than this sister.
At the end of the day, it's all still just love.
Right. And I think that a lot of people who are doing polyamory healthily are
good caveat.
Understanding that the love is able to expand to encompass the people that you need in your life.
Yes.
And I think that's what's most important to understand. Just because I have a wife and I love her so much, I cannot tell y'all how spectacular my wife is. But because I love her, it doesn't decrease how much I love another person. And because I love that other person doesn't decrease how I love my wife.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's super important for people to understand. It's not taking away from the love of my wife to love another person.
It's just adding more love to your life.
Right. It's dynamic and changing, and I feel like that's kind of how love is. It adapts and expands and grows and changes everything around it by eroding the rough edges of hatred and anger and jealousy and all of these negative emotions. It just smooths them away. Okay.
So I have two thoughts on this, and they're both kind of divergent. One has to do with being actively part of a community of people who love each other, because we are not, as humans, designed to function as two within our society. We're designed to function as many. So having more people within our tribe, our clan, our group, whatever it is, the more we can support each other, the more we share resources, the more we can help each other. The other side of that is that monogamy, for sure we have to point out, is sometimes really, really valid for people. A lot of people cannot and should not try poly. It's just not for them.
Absolutely.
So I just want to make sure that we have that up front too. Like, we're not looking to convert anybody. We're looking to make it easier for people who want to think about poly and decide whether or not it's right for them, or have conversations with people who already are. But but if you've looked at it, and that's the most important thing, look at your relationship, have the conversations, decide what it is that you really need, decide what it is that you really want, communicate that with your partner, listen to what they have to say. And if you decide that monogamy is for you, that's awesome. The hard part is, I think a lot of people who are in monogamous relationships haven't looked at alternatives for other options of relationship styles. Maybe monogamy isn't for them, but they're just kind of coasting through life because that's all they've been taught. So I think that that's part of what our discussions are going to be, is saying, this might not be right for you, but here's something to think about. And even if you decide to be monogamous, take whatever information you've gleaned from this conversation back to your own relationship and try to apply it, because it's only going to make your relationship better, to be more communicative, more honest, more thoughtful. There are a lot of things that the poly community can teach monogamous people about how to be better monogamists.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, okay. So, side note, not related to the podcast, but I have a friend who's or maybe we can use part of this. He's in a completely, it's a loving relationship. It involves 2 kids. It's sexless. It's been sexless for a very long time. I'm going to say like 5 or 6 years.
Oh, that sucks.
She's specifically told him that he is not allowed to go outside of the relationship at all, period. Like, no negotiation, just like, you are not going to get sex from me, and you are not going to get sex from anybody else.
Oh, that's, no, you need to dump that chick, because that's unacceptable.
He can't, because of the kids.
Kids are not a reason for a person to stay in a relationship. I don't give a shit.
I've told him that too, but he's stuck in where he is, and until he decides that he wants to move on, he's pretty much there. And part of that is he has a very high profile, high travel, high paying job, and she is the stay-at-home person with the kids. So if he were to, if they were to get separated, he would not see his kids every day, and that would wreck him.
Man, that's a rough situation.
It's a rough situation, and they're not very old. I think his oldest is like 8 or 9.
Yeah,
and he has 2. So,
seek family counseling.
No, they've tried. On a related note, I will say that my parents separated when I was in 4th grade. My sister was 2 grades younger than me, and I have thanked them in between the time that they divorced and now a number of times for getting divorced, because if they had stayed together until my sister had gotten from 2nd grade to 12th grade, 10 more years of them being together would have been miserable. That they are so much better people.
A lot of people don't realize that polyamory really helps you understand when to recognize when a relationship is over. And
yes.
This is a point where people, can learn, like Jeanne said earlier, that polyamory is able to teach you a valuable lesson in seeing, okay, my relationship is at a point where there's an impossible task for both of us. You can't make this compromise, and I can't make this compromise. We can't find a workaround. We can't find an ulterior way to do things. What are we going to do? And in some cases, the best thing to do at that point is to break the relationship apart. At a point where you can heal and come together and say, okay, we can be parents to our children, but we can't be lovers, and we can't be, in a relationship, but we can be parents and be stronger for it with healing just a small thing. Because that small thing, if you let it fester and let it break you apart in a long term, causes hatred and resentment and anger, and you say the wrong words and you speak these things that you can't take back. You cause irreparable harm to the people who are around you, not just your wife, not just your husband, but your kids see this damage that's happening to you. Even small children can recognize when their parents are miserable.
Oh, yeah, I was one of those kids.
Right, and I was as well. I recognized that my mom and dad's relationship was broken when I was 7.
Yeah.
And
that was about the same age that I was, yeah.
Right, and, when my mom first left my dad, that was when I recognized, oh, hey, this isn't normal. This isn't how love is supposed to be. But then I watched that when she came back to him, I watched that problem still was there, and it was building up, and it turned my dad into a monster in many cases. Alcoholism helped as well, but that was the breaking point for my father. He let that seed of insecurity, because my mom was able to make legitimate money, and he wasn't because of his disabilities.
Oh, and that probably, I'm guessing that reflected back on his manhood.
Yeah, and he's old school. The man's supposed to,
Yep.
go to work and bring home the money, and he took it even further than that. He didn't just bring home the money. He went hunting and brought home food and raised cattle and raised chickens, and we were self-sustainable for most of our lives. And
I am the provider.
Right. He was the ultimate provider. I mean, this machismo hunter, brah, you know? And then he couldn't anymore. He couldn't do it anymore. He lost his eyesight. He stopped being able to work as hard because his body started shutting down on him. And all of these things happened to my dad. And it caused him to go into a downhill spiral into alcoholism and abusiveness. And just, that's what happens when you let a small thing that couldn't be compromised on fester.
We are given one life, full of billions of small and large decisions. To be somebody, to change, to be kind, to give hope, to become a better person, and to leave a lasting impact on this planet. It is a decision to be made every single day while your heart is still beating. We've made our decision. Absence of clothing. Atheist and science-based apparel and merchandise, donating 50% of our profits to charity. Look good and feel good, without God. Check us out at absenceofclothing.com and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest for discount codes and other sweet swag.
So, Jeanne, what drew you to polyamory? And, kind of tell people what your background is. I told everybody a little bit about my background, but, what is your background?
My parents met at a Christian college in the 60s. They pretty much missed the entire 60s, which was unfortunate. They moved up to Alaska, which is where my dad had lived after he'd gotten out of the military. So I grew up in the 70s and 80s in a small town in Alaska with 13 bars and 13 churches and very, very Christian parents. And I also grew up, it was in Alaska, I grew up around nature. And it's really hard to believe in God when I'm surrounded every day by mountains and weather and the ocean and everything that ocean contains. It's really easy to believe in nature. And
well, some people would say that is the embodiment of what God is.
No, absolutely not. It is so wild and it is so unconstructed and it is so precise in everything that it's science. Like that's the exciting thing. Like God had nothing to do with it. even though I kid you not, I grew up at the base of Marathon Mountain. Yeah. And actually, when you're you're 4 years old and going to kindergarten, you have to spell the street that you live on. Resurrection Boulevard was not an easy one. Let's just say.
I can understand that.
On the other hand, my first word was ornament, so I think I was doing okay. So I started separating myself a little bit from the church, probably in my early teens. And my church was outside. My church was digging in leaves and watching rotting salmon in the streams and climbing mountains and being chased by bears and artesian springs and crazy rural shit that a lot of people don't ever get. I tried to explore other religions, and I actually asked my dad at one point. And I kind of started exploring paganism right around that time. And my mom was sort of on board, but she kind of didn't know what I was doing exactly. And this was when my parents were divorced. And she had part-time custody of us on weekends, like every other weekend, all weekend long. And so we actually got to go to bookstores because we were in the big city. And let me reformulate my thoughts here. So I'm in the middle of nature. I have two Christian parents. My mom was also going through a whole lot of the 80s self-awareness seminar, express yourself, all that happy hippie bullshit, which there were a lot of things good that came out of it. And there was a lot of stuff that was just like a whole lot of crap.
Yeah, there was a lot of woo in the 80s.
There was a lot of woo in the 80s. And my mom was, and my mom, bless her heart, was an oversharer. So I learned a lot about not making relationship mistakes from my mom making them and then kind of coming back to me and my sister and saying like, oh my God, I just completely fucked this up.
It's like, I shouldn't have let him put it in a butt.
Well, she didn't go quite that far, but yeah, she explained the vibrator and the joys of a happy shower head. Let's just say. So bless my mom for not being. She was very not shy. Looking back retrospectively, very not shy for the type of information she was giving me and my sister.
It sounds like she was kind of sex positive and a little bit, able to be a little bit free with herself with y'all. It seems like that.
Yeah, I think that it was exactly kind of what I took from it, which is I think that she didn't want us to make those same mistakes. So it was better to share her fuck ups. And she was kind of an emotional wreck at that point too. So there was kind of no filter. But that also kind of ties back to, I don't even remember how old I was. 3, maybe 4. And my mom had been one of the first teachers of Lamaze in the area. So she actually was the first person, I think, that had natural childbirth in the hospital that I was born in without anesthetic. And then she taught classes after that. So I was down in the place that she normally taught classes, which was at a friend's house, and we were playing down in the basement, and I ran across some interesting pictures, and they were just biology pictures. And I called her down, and I said, hey, Mom, can you, tell me about these things? And she kind of, walked me through the basics of sex education. So I don't ever remember not knowing about sex, at least as a form of procreation.
Okay.
So there was no, awkward... I didn't know about masturbation. I didn't know about sex for fun, but I actually knew the basics of sex at an age so young that I really didn't give a shit. So by the time I actually gave a shit, I already knew the basics of sex education and probably had for, 5, 6, 7 years.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So my mom actually was fairly sex positive, and she still is. We still talk about what it's like for her to go through menopause, and she's like, yeah, every once in a while, I feel like it for a little bit and I knock one out. And if my husband's in the mood, he'll, he'll just lube up and have at and, gets happy and we're done.
Wow.
I have those conversations with my mom.
I don't have those conversations with my mom. She doesn't do that any longer. She's a nun.
Have sex?
She's a nun. That's all I refuse to think of my mom as anything other than a nun.
Is it because she's your mom, or is she actually practicing nun type?
No, it's because she's my mom. My mom just...
I've never had a relationship with my mom.
No. No.
And your dad's been not healthy around you.
My dad actually passed away in 2011.
What was your relationship like with him before then?
Oh my God. Okay, so this kind of goes into my childhood and background. So my mom was very religious, and as was my grandmother. My dad was not so much in. He was, he wasn't anti-religious, and he would go to church when my mom would leave him, which means every 6 months to a year, because that was a sure way to get her to come back to him. But the church that we were a part of was a hardcore Southern Pentecostal church, and really, really super strict. The women wore cotton dresses and couldn't cut their hair, and the men were the leaders of the house, and the woman, she was subservient to man, and women weren't allowed to preach or anything like that. It was very Old Testament and things like that. And I grew up out in the woods and out in the wild, and way out in the BFE. And I think that was one of those things that really, struck me as so powerful about nature. Like you were talking about earlier, is I didn't have mountains around me or anything like that, but I had acres and acres of just land that I could explore, woods and rivers and ponds and lakes, and I could explore everywhere.
So I think that, and I actually never got around to this, but I think we're both kind of leading up to the same place. I think this is where we probably both came to atheism. And I'm guessing that likely from atheism, that's kind of where poly also happened, or like after atheism, poly happened as well, or after non-Christianity, maybe.
No, actually, it took me a really long time to become an atheist. I didn't become an atheist until I was 29.
You actually beat me because I kind of just started thinking of myself as an atheist a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, even like I never even went to there's a God, but he doesn't have anything to do with the world and stuff like that. What do you do?
Did you find atheism first, or did you find poly first?
I definitely found atheism first, but in my former marriage, we tried swinging, and we tried like an open marriage kind of concept, but the relationship was abusive from the start, from on her end. And we essentially did everything possible that completely fucks up a relationship. We had a baby because we thought it would fix the relationship.
Nope.
We, explored swinging because we thought it would fix the relationship.
Nope.
We did all these things, and I kept trying to get her to go to therapy, and she would go see her therapist, but she wouldn't go see my therapist. And, so we weren't getting couples counseling. She was telling her therapist her side of the things, and I was telling my therapist my side of the things, and my therapist was like, oh man, she's cray-cray. And her therapist was like, man, he's a dick.
Yeah, that's not functional.
And so it just destructed. It just completely imploded.
Can you roll that back a little bit? Because I actually had a friend who asked a question that was related to what you were just talking about. He was asking about what is the percentage of atheists in open relationships versus the number of religious people in open relationships?
Oh, not a fucking clue.
Well, but
that's my scientific answer, by the way.
The question then for me becomes, so if you were considering yourself Christian at the time that you were trying swinging, how did you jive those two in your head? Like, how did that make sense?
Actually, at the time that we were swinging, I was not very religious. I was studying the Kabbalah.
So you were outside of Christianity at that point.
Right. I was kind of doing an exploration of all these different religions and things like that. And so whenever I was, just kind of in that path of discovering different ideas and things like that, my marriage was also imploding, and we weren't doing anything about it. And so they were very separate at that point.
Which actually kind of ties back into part of my history too, just to kind of keep a parallel going. I know that I asked my dad when I was probably an early teen, hey, I want to explore other religions. And I'm thinking like Hinduism, Buddhism, I'm a reader. I've been a reader for all my life. And he was like, well, the Macaulays go to the Methodist church, and the Andreessens go to the Catholic church, and they could probably take you. And we're right next door to the Lutheran church. It's like half a block down. So, I could drive us to church, and then you could walk if you wanted to try that one. I was like, no, I don't want to try different sects, Dad. I want to try different religions. And he had like, it just baffled him. And this man had gone to a religious college.
What sect of Christianity were y'all? Nazarene, okay. So I was thinking to say, if he was Baptist and encouraging you to go to the Catholic church, that's weird.
Well, no, he was just more like shopping around for neighbors that would take me to church. If I wanted to try out different religions, it was which church did I want to go to. And I was like, well, there's a mini Jewish temple like outside of the town limits, and I'm pretty sure there's a Seventh-day Adventist. Like I have no idea what they're about, but maybe I should try those. And he's like, no, you don't want to go there.
Those are the crazy people. Those are the cults. Like, Jews killed Jesus.
No, okay. He wasn't that bad.
I got that one time from my grandmother. Yeah.
Really? Oh my goodness. No, I'd actually helped organize a bunch of school dances in junior high and then worked in a movie theater in high school before I found out that our church doctrine actually prohibited both dancing and watching movies. Yeah. So my dad was pretty Christian, but not Christian enough to tell me no.
I gotcha.
Yes. It's also how little idea I had about what my doctrine was.
My Southern Pentecostal church was hardcore. Like, we couldn't watch TV. We couldn't listen to music unless it was gospel music. And we couldn't listen to, like, radio unless it was Billy Graham or another preacher.
We listened to a lot of Billy Graham.
Right. And so, like, I can't tell you, my Graham, she had everything that Billy Graham ever created. Every tape, every book, every pamphlet,
VHS.
like VHS, the whole 9 yards. Everything was, like, her house was a shrine to Billy Graham.
Hang on just a second. Okay, I'm done. No.
Are you done?
Okay.
Are you okay? Nice. So why was that funny?
It's Billy fucking Graham. Oh my god.
Kills me. So, but anyways, we're bouncing back and forth. When I came out as an atheist, I lost a huge chunk of my family. You know, because I did it on Facebook, and a big chunk of my family was like, oh, well, you're going to hell. And I'm like, there is no hell. Beep. And they're like, unfriend, block, unfriend, block. And I was like, hey, where'd all my family go? Da-da-da. Like, hey, cuz, what's up? You're going to hell. You're going to hell. Whoa, hey, I was just going to ask you how your day was. My day's fine, but you're going to hell. Oh, okay. And so I wound up having, like, to build a new family, you know? And that's actually when I fell into the atheist community. You know, I started really exploring community, trying to find friends and trying to find people I could hang out with. And, you know, that was what, you know, and once I found the atheist community, it was like I found a family. The problem is, much of my family is spread all over the United States. And
I know.
And we have a family reunion. It's called ReasonCon. It'll be happening.
Nice pitch.
Yeah, it'll be happening April 21st and 22nd in Hickory, North Carolina. There you go, Jeanne. That's your
plug.
Commercial. Yeah, that's the plug. And I'll get to see a lot of my family there. I'm really excited. And Jeannie's coming somehow.
I'll figure out how to make it work.
We are Polyaskery. 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 You can find us at Polyaskery pretty much anywhere. Try polyaskery.com. That will lead you, among other places, to our Facebook page, our blog, our Twitter, and our Patreon. Polyaskery. We are here. Join us, but only with the consent of all the people involved.
I tried paganism for a while. It kind of went through phases. Like, it was never like Wicca. It was just not Christian. Like, dude, the earth fucking rocks. And there's got to be something out there. So it was more like nature agnosticism.
Nature agnosticism?
That's what I would probably call it. Yeah. And so I've never fallen within any kind of doctrine at all. Oh, this is how I left the church. So early teens, before I was still kind of like sort of dabbling into the pagan thing, looking for, can I investigate other religions? We don't really have any Buddhists in town, etc. So I'm like, all right, so religion has to be a thing. I've been told all my life that this is a thing. So I started going to Wednesday night Bible study, and I'm a teen, and I'm there with like my dad and everybody else that's like his age or older.
Oh, that must have sucked.
Yeah. And I think we got to, you might even know the chapter and verse. It's probably like a Leviticus, I'm guessing. Something about if somebody says, hey, here's the word of God, you in or you out. And they say no, you're going to hell. If they never have the chance, they may or may not go to hell. If they have a chance and accept, then they're going to heaven. And I actually pulled my pastor aside after that Bible study in front of my dad and said, okay, let me get this straight. A missionary walks up a mountain to a Buddhist monk who has done everything that the Bible says that we should do. He has given away all of his money. He works only for charity. He works for the good of the community. He is living like a completely holy life. And the missionary goes, knock, knock, knock. How about Jesus? And he's like, no, I'm good. You're going to tell me if this man is going to go to hell? And my pastor pretty much said, yeah.
Yeah. I had that huge problem. That was one of my steps away as well.
No, that was my mic drop. I'm like, I'm fucking out. I'm out. I can't do this.
Deuces, bitches.
So I never followed any sort of actual religious doctrine. It's always been some sort of form of chaotic fun, I guess.
Chaotic fun sounds good.
Mm-hmm. And it's been just maybe in the last, I'm going to say 4 years that I've actually crossed over from marginally pagan-ish agnostic to, no, I'm a fucking atheist. This makes way too much sense. And I'm really kind of ashamed that it took me this long. And when I came out to my mom as atheist, she's like, I think I am too. But I still haven't had that conversation, I don't think, with my dad. But I've come out to my dad as not Christian, bisexual, poly, and eventually we'll get around to like atheism, like I said, if we haven't already. But it really doesn't matter because there are a whole lot of things that we've decided that we don't talk about. We still love each other, and he's a really awesome person, and he's still a Republican. I have no idea how he voted because we don't talk about that. But no, he's a good human with a very, very good heart, and I care a lot about him, and I know that he cares a lot about me, despite me being a heretic in so many ways. So I've had those tough conversations with my family, and the rest of my family, other than my mom, my sister, my dad. I couldn't give two fucks if my aunts, my sisters, or my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. I don't care. I have one living grandparent. She doesn't need to know. She's 97.
Right.
And even if I told her, she probably wouldn't remember tomorrow.
Oh, damn. So, in all of that, like, what drew you into polyamory?
I think it's about the dumping out the backpack concept. That once I finally, and this was long before, this was still when I was doing the pagan thing, but I had dumped Christianity. I'm like, okay, so this is something that I've been told all my life. This is something that's supposed to be real. In the meantime, I had, thanks to Star Trek Next Generation, figured out that bisexual was probably a thing I probably was, or pansexual, or sapiosexual.
What was it about Star Trek Next Generation? Who was it in that show that did that for you?
There is an episode where Beverly Crusher falls in love with a Trill.
Okay.
And the Trill originally is in a male body, and then the male body fails, and the Trill gets moved to another host.
Right.
And the host body happens to be female.
Okay.
And so Beverly's in love with the Trill. She's in love with the mind. She's in love with that person, who that person is. And when I saw that, it made no sense to me that why would you completely dismiss somebody because of their body?
Right.
The body is just a shell that has nothing to do with who that person actually is. And so I dumped Christianity. I started questioning my gender binary expectations because I also dumped Christianity. And because of those two things, I also said, okay, so what else about my life have I had this expectation put upon me that this is how life should be? It is all this stuff that I've been given, all this shit that's been shoved into my backpack. How much of it is valid? How much of it is actually mine? And is there something that I can leave behind? Is this something that I want to pick up and take with me going forward? So that's part of where coming to poly came from, was if I'm not Christian and I'm not heterosexual, am I also monogamous?
Wow.
And my answer to that was no.
Okay.
Or not necessarily. I started off as like a gentle poly, or a gentle open, with still concepts of monogamy. I tried being the couple that picked up the unicorn.
Right.
Because I still had that concept of monogamy. And then because I wasn't partnered, I tried being the unicorn because I still really like that concept of structure and stability and
yeah.
when I'm sick, is somebody going to bring me soup? Right now in my life, no, because I don't have stable people around me as like an everyday interaction. I don't have that. And in my last 3 relationships, I've let that part of it go, that I don't have to be in a stable something. I don't have to force something to happen in order to be happy. I can just let whatever that relationship is just be what it is.
Right. And it's the ultimate form of poly.
And that's why I'm solo poly right now. So yeah, my first journey into not triads was me and my primary, who was a female, and her primary, who was also female, and my primaries also had a primary who was male. So the top tier primaries had sex with a whole bunch of other people. My primary was the woman's secondary, and my primary had sex with a few other people, and I was pretty much only having sex with my primary.
Okay.
So that's kind of where it was like, and we were friends. We hung out a lot. We had dinners together. We did potlucks. We did events. We went to Jazz Fest. We went to plays together. We drove up to Montreal and spent an afternoon hanging out shopping. We explained that to the border. How do you all know each other? We're friends.
You started trying to dictate through the polycule who's all connected.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah, we're not explaining that. And we're talking probably a 30-year age range between the oldest of us and the youngest of us at the time. And I was not the youngest of us.
Okay.
And so that kind of started, I'm not attached to, I would like to be part of a solid formation, but that's not necessarily required for me to be happy.
That's awesome.
The relationship after that was long distance with somebody near Chicago-ish. And I got him laid on my 40th birthday via the phone. We had an 1.5 hour long conversation just shooting the shit. I was like, oh, you should get off the phone and go fuck my boyfriend, please. that was like, we've already talked about this. Like, we've already decided that you're going to go fuck my boyfriend. So like, we should just stop chatting and you should go do that, because he's probably bored and wondering where the fuck his phone is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's like, hey baby, I'm drunk. Happy birthday. There's this chick here. She's really hot. I've been talking about her about her to you for a while. No, put her on the phone, dude. I can't be there to fuck you. Might as well get some head or something.
Right? Did they at least send you pictures? I would have requested pictures.
Oh, no. I requested pictures. She was like he's camera shy.
Okay.
She was all for it. He was camera shy.
Gotcha. I understand that. So my poly situation came around by accident, kind of. My then girlfriend and I were on our way to North to go visit some family, and we were listening to Dan Savage's Savage Lovecast. I love that podcast. It's amazing.
Oh, I love Dan Savage.
Oh my God. And so this is my first exposure to Dan Savage as well.
What?
Yeah, this was my first time. This was four almost 5 years ago. And we were on our way up to where her family stays, and we were listening to it, and like one story was about this woman who called in and she wanted to know what to do with her panties that had been put in her vagina by this guy and then put in her butt and then put back in her vagina after they had had sex. So they had all that juices and scents and stuff like that.
First thing you do is don't sleep with that person again, because that's just fucking rude.
No, but she found it super hot, and she was like, that was the most amazing sex I've ever had with anybody in my life. Do I wash them or do I leave them to just
dry out or put them in a Ziploc bag. Or...
Right. Like, what do I do with these? And Dan was just like, so this is the first time I ever had to deal with this question. And I was just like, my face, and I know y'all can't see this, but my face was just in a, oh my God mode. I was just like...
That was priceless.
Right. You just like, holy shit, the very first question that you deal with. And, you know, my girlfriend was just laughing so hard at me. She was dying laughing at me because I was just like, holy shit, what the fuck? Are you serious? And it wasn't a matter of like shaming the woman for, you know, something that I find kind of, whoa, cricket. But, you know, it was just shock. It's like, holy crap, that is a problem. How do you, whoa, and this, I don't know what is going on.
Can I ask you a personal question, which may or may not be part of the recording? How much experience had you had at this point? Sexual experience?
Sexual experience?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm a champ. I mean, at this point, I'm like,
no. At the point where you was hearing about the panties.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, I've been, you know, with 70 women. No. Okay. How much sexual experience did I have?
Yeah.
Quite a bit. How much experience did I have with kink? 0.
Oh, okay. That was kind of sorry. That was more to the point.
Yeah. So like BDSM, and you know, it's like, oh my God, you chain her up. I'm like, I'm a virgin as far as kink is concerned at this point.
Well, that's what I kind of meant by sexual experiences. I don't care how many interactions you've had, but the actual experiences you've had are different.
None. Like, I partially accidentally got tied up one time, and
you have to tell me that story later.
Like, you know, just like, you know, one arm was here and it was tied up by my shirt, and one arm was here and it was tied up by my belt, and things happened. You know, it was a bad day. You know, whatever. Yeah, that was my exposure to kink, was that story right there. You snorted, and I'm keeping it in this podcast. I swear on everything.
I will do that a lot. Don't worry. Can't stop laughing.
I know. I can see you laughing at me and my virgin kink, and being exposed to that one being the very first kink I'm exposed to. Like, even in porn, I didn't really look at that kind of stuff. Like, I looked at generic porn. You know, I didn't explore other kinds of porn because I was like, oh no, that's stuff that I'm not. Yeah. Like, it was a path I wasn't ready to go down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I totally do.
And now I'm just tentacle hentai porn. Fuck yeah, let's do this.
You gotta send me some.
Oh hey, I got it all. So xvideos.com. Anyways, but.
Is anybody in your house listening to you talk?
Yeah, I think they're all listening to me. My wife is probably just like, oh fuck this dude. Are you serious? Are you telling that story? Jesus.
I know, she's worrier.
Yeah, so
that's okay, there's editing.
But yeah, so fast forward, and the next couple of questions are all about non-monogamy. You know, Dan's dealing with different women who are having problems in their relationship, that their husband isn't allowing them a certain thing that they need. And a husband called in, and his wife was asexual and would not have sex with him. And that's where the concept of polyamory came up in discussion. And so here, you know, my girlfriend and I have been dating for 3 months. I'm on my way to meet her parents for the first time. And
great story.
Here we are, and we start talking about ethical non-monogamy and what that meant to us. And what would that look like in our lives? Do we think we could sleep with one another for the next 20 years and 30 years? Like, what does that look like? You know, we're both in our 30s. Like, you know, have we really explored everything there is that life has to give us? And we both said, like, almost simultaneously that we wanted to look into it. And so...
You were really, really lucky. Well...
Right.
On the other hand, you did say that when you first met your girlfriend, you knew that you were going to marry her.
Yeah. It was just within a few days.
Wow.
But...
That's amazing.
We really had fun, but our biggest thing is we knew that we had to build, and we listen to Dan all the time, and it's always about building communication and building trust and having safe spaces to talk to each other, being safe enough to share your emotions.
Yes, well, that's part of it, is knowing what you want,
right,
and being able to communicate that, and being able to hear what somebody else is saying without judgment.
Right, and having those safe spaces is what is so important in a relationship.
Yes.
You know, so many relationships fail because there's two things missing in the relationship. There's needs not being met and communication not being said.
Yes.
If you don't have those two things, then your relationship, it's going to blow up. So you have to be able to communicate what you want so that you can get a need met.
I think that's also a part of that, is also letting go of whatever. Don't bring anybody else's expectations into your relationship.
Right.
It gets to be your relationship. So,
right.
So it always should be, and that's communication again, but it should be started from the ground up.
Right. And
with like, hey, I'm bi, I like ass sex, like whatever it is, you know, I like to be tied up, you know, even if none of those things are my things, I still want to hear them from the other person and say, okay, this is where I'm in or I'm out, or we can negotiate to find a good middle.
Right. But it's all about that communication and being open. And so we both said, okay, well, these are the things that we need in our relationship in order to be able to be successfully poly. And that is that we need to be able to communicate, have a strong foundation of trust, have a strong foundation of you know, being honest with each other, even if honesty is going to hurt.
Security.
Right. And making sure that we are able to communicate our needs. And if either one of us can't meet those needs, then that's something that poly can help with. And so that's kind of, you know, 3.5 years later, we're married and things are really solid and we were really happy and having a lot of fun. And we were just like, hey, how do you feel about exploring this poly thing? And then that's how I wound up, you know, after a small bump where we tried a triad thing.
Unicorn?
Yes, we did that. And I don't have the same stigma against unicorn hunters and unicorns that a lot of people do. And we'll talk about that on another show. But
yeah, there should be a whole show about unicorns.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do that. Unicorns and how to care for them. Coming up in a few weeks. But one of the things... Maybe
a few months.
Yeah, maybe a few months. We'll see how fast this goes. But one of the things that, you know, broke lucky for us is we just happened to meet a couple that were looking for another couple. And I hit it off really, really well with the female of the couple. And my wife hit it off really well with the husband of the couple. And he was working near us and he came to our house and we went out to dinner and we actually hung out with him. And he came back to the house and we all kind of kicked it. And then me and him stayed up until 2-3 o'clock in the morning, just talking and, you know, just getting really, really, you know, it's like, oh man, this dude's awesome and da-da-da. And then a couple weeks later,
trust.
Yeah, trust. And then a couple weeks later, I met his wife in person because we had just talked on Facebook. And it was electricity and it was beautiful and fun. And, she was so beautiful. And then a few weeks later, we kind of consummated everything, you know, my wife and him went off and they did their thing. And, and then me and his wife went off and we did our thing and it was beautiful and amazing and it just worked. And so now I'm actually in a live-in quad with the same couple, where we live together, we share a house, share finances, the whole 9 yards.
Are you in a place where you can talk a little bit about what their relationship was like? They were looking for another couple. Can you talk about any of their past history?
They were just, they had been poly for a long time, and they were just at a point where, you know, they were open to another couple or another, you know, if a woman came along or something like that. And it just so happens that a couple came along and they were open to it, and it really worked out.
That would be really interesting if they're interested to hear some of their backstory.
I'll see if I can ever get them on a podcast.
Okay. I would be interested in hearing that story.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. I don't like to tell other people's stories like that because there's so much nuance in there that I can't capture.
Well, that's part of the reason I asked, like, are you comfortable with giving me a soundbite for that?
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, and feel free to edit that out too.
Yeah. But yeah, and now I recently just stepped back from a year-long relationship with another lady that I was with, and I've got a couple of potentials on the horizon, and you know, as does my wife. She has a potential on the horizon. Yeah. And then we never know what's going to happen at ReasonCon.
Never know.
So, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with my polyamory, and that's a very long telling of our story currently.
Coming to you from Reason Alliance Media, this is PSF, promoting secular feminism. I'm Miss B. Haven. Wait a minute, that was the old show. You're right, Princess Sparklefarts. A new age of PSF is upon us, and it will be so very uterific. So very uterific? Really? Your name is Princess Sparklefarts. You have no room to criticize. Our show will be returning on Galentine's Day 2017, which is February 13th, with a special episode about the Women's March in DC, where we have one of our crew marching. We'll also introduce you to the PSF 2.0 crew, Miss Anthrope, Vegeta George, Mora Abortions, Villa Constrictor, and your old favorite, Miss B. Haven. Tune in on February 13th and every week after on iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube, on our Android app available in the Google Play Store, and check out our website for old episodes, new episodes, and the upcoming blog. There's even a post right now about what we can do to support each other and the organizations we love in facing the new regime. I'm Miss B. Haven, keeping the humorous in your uterus.
Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Polyaskery Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please check us out at patreon.com/polyaskery. If you want to give to us and think that we're worth it, please donate $1, donate whatever you want, or share our links and let everybody else know about us. You can find us at polyaskery.com, at Polyaskery on Twitter, or you can look us up on Facebook. Thank you so much, everybody. Y'all have a great day.